Welcome to the Escape Room Experts Podcast, your source for tips, techniques, and strategies on how to approach escape rooms and how to use them for both fun and team building.
I'm Sandy Keene.
And I'm Tony Duckett.
And we are the Escape Room Experts.
So welcome back to our podcast.
Today we're going to talk to you about how you pick your team. I mean, who are the people that you decide to go and play with?
And this is actually an interesting question because we all have lots of different kinds of friends. And believe it or not, they all fit in these rooms.
But what we find is, and we were just talking about this, you get a lot of people who are very nervous. People think they're going to look stupid, right? Or you have hyper-competitive people. And one of the questions we get asked quite often is, well, if I'm going to come, who should I bring along? So we thought it was a good way to start.
Absolutely. And you need to get people that you can communicate well with. That's a great start. But they don't have to be of the same ilk, if you will. And we'll go through some of those there's lots of different kinds of people that we've categorized, and we can kind of walk through some of those.
My favorite is people say, I don't think I'm smart enough. I love when I hear that because we always say, you don't have to be smart. It's about being clever. It's about being observant. It's about being a good communicator. But in most escape rooms, smart isn't a factor.
As a matter of fact, sometimes the really, really smart people can be a hindrance in these rooms because we walk in with lots of baggage because we know so much, right? It can be a challenge.
Yes. Some of our favorites are we get, I won't specify the exact professions, but we get people who come in, kind of thump their chest and go, this is what I do. I'm going to be great at this. We're going to be out of here in 25 minutes. And
almost without fail, we go, he's not getting out.
Yeah, we kind of look at each other and we laugh. We go, okay, sure, whatever you think. So let's talk about some types, okay? Right. So the first type, and these are the people who were early adopters of the escape room, are what we call the puzzle geek.
Yes.
So the puzzle geek are the people who, this is what they do for fun. They love to do puzzles. They hang out, they do Sudoku, they do word searches, they do crossword puzzles, they do anagrams. All, by the way, different types of things you might find in an escape room. But they think that because they are puzzle people, they're going to be great at this.
But what they aren't necessarily good at, puzzle people tend to be good one-on-one with a puzzle.
Yeah.
An escape room is not only one-on-one, there are multiple puzzles that lead to each other and they feed in. So it's that cross-pollination piece that they sometimes have a challenge with, and they need other types of people to help them through that.
Now, when they show up, if there's a puzzle geek in the group, usually everybody's pointing at them and they're going, well, we're going to do great because of him or because of her, because they're a puzzle person. And they do well in the room.
They do.
Depending upon the type of room, ours usually have some sort of a puzzle in them. Not every escape room has a puzzle.
So the challenge with this is finding ways. This is really about harnessing talent, right? And harnessing skill sets. So if there's a puzzle and you have a puzzle geek, that's outstanding.
Yeah.
If there's math and you have a person who's outstanding at math, that's awesome too.
Another type of geek.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you've got to know what you have. You've got to take an inventory of your friend set and bring a varied group of people into the room so that you can harness whatever you need while you're there.
So here's the second type of person. We call them the know-it-all. Now,
she's not talking about me, by the way. Go.
Well, sometimes. And we have seen many know-it-alls in the room. And these are the people who come in and they're like, yeah, you're not going to be able to fool me. You know, I'm going to be able to see it. They come in very full of themselves is how we usually talk about it.
Well, this past week, we had a debrief just yesterday, as a matter of fact. And the young lady was telling me that her son is a PhD student, and so he's 14, right? Well, she actually he said to her, well, you're gonna have to find one that's really tough because you know it'll be easy for me. She came out of the room and said, ooh, can I send him here? That's called knowing your son and knowing what he's good at.
Yeah.
So he's probably an outstanding student and very smart. But smart people typically can do certain things really well. Very few people do everything well. And
what's funny, with that story is most of the time the know-it-alls, and we know when someone's going to be a know-it-all, are either kids who think they know everything because their parents have told them how good they are, or parents who say, my kid is so smart, right? And they don't necessarily do so well in the room, but they can. Smart isn't a bad thing. It's just not a prerequisite.
And it actually, it's the smarter you are, the more you get frustrated quickly. because smart usually is fact-based, right? So everything that is factual, you do well at.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily, and this is not true of all people, obviously, that reading between the lines, the finding the loose association, that's not necessarily their strong point. And it can be quite frustrating when they're in that room.
Yeah, escape rooms are so much about being able to take a step back and see the big picture. And sometimes when you think you are that smart, you actually get stuck in the detail, and the big picture doesn't become a factor for you. So then we have our third type. We call them, at the School of Hard Knocks, the too cool for school people.
No, that would be me. I'm
yes,
sorry.
he's totally the too cool for school people. So the too cool for school person, that's kind of a tongue twister. They're the ones who they walk in and they go, I don't really know why I'm doing this. I mean, my friends wanted to go and I decided to come along, but they kind of take the attitude of this is beneath them.
Yes. And it's funny because now I'm going to be a bit of a sexist, so guys out there don't hate me for this. Sometimes wives come in with their families and the husband is here under duress. And you can see while he's walking around in the entry room that I don't really want to be here. She made me come and I'm going to do this. This is not something I'm interested in. But about 12 to 14 minutes in the room, they start to realize my family needs me, and I don't know as much as I thought I did.
Which is always entertaining to see on screen when that revelation hits them, because most escape rooms have TVs, have cameras that we can watch, and I have to admit, we do enjoy watching.
It is.
And so when you see these too cool for school people, and they kind of wander around, their hands in their pockets, looking around like, and then something fascinates them. And as soon as something fascinates them, they become one of the other types.
And I'll tell you what's interesting about the reason you want one of those in the room, though, is their calm that they bring to the room adds another dimension. So they will find things in the room that only a too cool for school person would find because of the calm that they bring. It's almost they're just accepting what the room gives them and not overthinking it because they think it's beneath them anyway. So they will make discoveries that others may walk right past.
Which works really well, you're right. I mean, they're a good fit when you have the other types as well.
Just know they're in there and know how to use them.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we get to the Aimless Wanderer. I have to admit, this may in fact be one of my favorite types. And I don't know why, because, yes I do, I know why. Because my wife is an aimless wanderer when she goes into an escape room. They walk in and they start looking, and they kind of look around like this, and then they start touching things. They don't really seem to be doing very much, and yet they've noticed everything in the room. And so when you speak up and you go, has anybody seen anything like that? They're like, oh yeah, that was back there, right? They notice everything and yet focus on nothing.
I almost look at them as a subtle twist of the too cool for school. They seem like they're too cool, but they're actually in there actively looking around.
Without a doubt.
They almost don't feel comfortable saying it out loud until you ask about it because they're not sure how you're going to view their comments. But they are critical to the success of the room because they literally have kept a mental inventory of everything they've run through.
Absolutely. And one of the fun things about them is as they're wandering, they'll see something that looks interesting and they'll fixate on it for a while. And the locks tend to be that thing. It's one of Tony's favorite things, right? The aimless wanderers are the ones who pick up the locks and go ahead, what do they do?
And they think that they can take a lock that has 4 digits and they can figure out without any clues exactly what the code is.
They listen to it.
And I always ask, did you have another job before this one? Did you break into houses? Because it seems like you really believe you can open that lock with 0 information. And then they look at me like I'm crazy.
But they are a lot of fun in the room. Yes. And they are very useful as a resource. Next up, everybody's advocate. Originally, we called these people cheerleaders, but we were going way too far with the school analogy. But they are the people in the room who, no matter what you do, they're going, oh, that was fabulous, good for you. Did you see what he did? Did you see what she did? They are the people who get the enthusiasm up. One of my favorite things in an escape room is celebrating the mini victories.
Yes.
These are the people who do that.
So on a corporate side, this is particularly interesting because personally, when you're in a room with a lot of different people, that's important. But when you talk about corporate environments, people don't celebrate each other enough.
Nope.
Especially at work, things can get tough from time to time. So small victories are what keep people going. That person is necessary in a corporate room, and equally as necessary when it's just a bunch of folks, especially if you don't know everybody.
Yes.
Someone's got to kind of rally the troops and make sure we're charging toward the same goal. So you need one of those. So when you're looking for somebody, if you're going to leave someone out, don't leave that one out.
Definitely not, because they help keep the momentum going. I think that's what's so important about them. Mini victories, if you don't celebrate them, it can start to drag. But when you do celebrate them, it gives you the next push that you need. And that's so critical to the success in a room.
And it pulls everybody back in. Someone probably wandered off. That energy goes, oh, I found something. Now we're back. And now everyone's charging forward again.
Yeah, they create the squirrel moments, right?
Yeah.
Squirrel. What do we do? Which leads me to the last type, which is, for escape room owners, the least favorite type. It is the I will do whatever it takes type of person. Why are they a problem?
Well, they don't really care to be here, and they know the purpose of an escape room is to find a way through the puzzles, the mazes, and the locks, but they don't mind cheating, right? So if they can find a way to go around the locks, they think that's fine too. Now, for us, it's your experience. You do what you want. Because it does kind of defeat the whole purpose of going to an escape room.
Yeah, we always wonder about the people who say, well, can we just break the door down? Well, we would prefer you not do that, but what's the point to that? You've paid money to go to an escape room. Don't you want to actually do the puzzles?
Well, the beautiful part about our partnership is I'm sitting behind this desk, but I'm not a small guy. So one of the things I can say to people is, so what do you think I'm going to do when you knock the door down? Which kind of changes the subject a bit.
We enjoy that about it.
But those people really don't want to be here and think that, by the way, breaking the door down is one of our military groups told us, it is a solution. It's not the solution you came here to use.
That's right.
To find.
It's a solution.
But it is a solution.
Yeah.
And that we've got little girls who stick their arm through the holes and find the key. And
we had one room that had a dog in a cage, and the dog had a key. It wasn't a real dog. Don't get upset with us. It was a stuffed dog. The dog had a key around its neck, and we would get little people, like little girls, little boys, and they would do everything they could to get around the wires on the cage, to the point where sometimes they would cut themselves on it. And I was like, well, but that's the key to the door. Don't you want to play? Isn't that why you're here? So we don't happen to love the I'll do whatever it takes people, but they kind of lead me into probably the most important conversation about the types of people in a room. When you play in an escape room with somebody who is supremely competitive, they can change the room completely. We don't even have a type for this. We couldn't give them a cutesy name. You get some people in an escape room who they want to win at all costs. Mm-hmm. And they are super competitive. And they can really, while they can be really great, they can put a damper on everybody else.
Well, one of the interesting things about people, period, right? People have specialties. If that person is supremely competitive, they might not know what they're great at. And they may superimpose their will on the room and lead people down a path of no return. So this is a team building, work together environment. That person can be really tough in the room when they superimpose their will and people follow them. So not a bad person to be in the room with. You just need to know who that person is and then think twice before you walk into the fire, making sure you have a way out.
If you're a really competitive person, play with other competitive people, because people who aren't really competitive are going to make you crazy. We have a corporate group that comes in, and they've done many of our rooms, and there's one woman that I'm thinking of, and the first time that she did one of our rooms, she didn't get out. And you could see, not just on her face, but you could see on the faces of the other people in the room when they didn't get out, her level of dismay. Let me tell you, the debrief with that group was not a fun debrief because she was so completely disappointed. And everybody had a good time, but they knew how disappointed she was, and it overwhelmed them. The next time they got out, it's probably my favorite picture I ever took, because we knew they were going to get out. And when we opened up the door, I snapped a picture of her going like this. She was thrilled to pieces.
But those are the kinds of people that you have in the room, and you should think through who you're going to play with. It's a fun time, and all of those people bring a different dynamic to the room. So make sure you are aware of who they are, and make sure they're aware of who they are. And then as long as you guys work well together, you'll have a great time, and you have a great chance of getting out.
Now, what happens when you're playing with strangers?
Oh, strangers is an interesting thing. It's good and bad. The tough part about it is you don't know who they are, so you don't know what their skill sets are. So I would hope that you would think through that and say, hey, who are you? Let's talk about who we are. So when we get in the room, we can leverage each other. But what tends to happen is folks get in the room and the people who know each other go to the left. And the people who know each other go to the other group that goes to the right. And now it's not a team anymore.
Yep.
Now it's just a bunch of people in the room walking around. So if I find something in my group and I forget to tell you and you need it, then how do you become successful?
Yeah, we have lots of different reactions to playing with strangers because we'll get a couple that will come in and two people aren't going to solve one of our rooms by themselves. So they play with other people. Sometimes they love that idea, sometimes they don't. Some of our most successful teams have been groups of strangers who, by the end, when they walk out, they're like, let's exchange numbers so we can come back and do it again together. Yeah. But you're right, strangers add an interesting dynamic because if the way to be successful in an escape room is to communicate, how do you break the ice and communicate with somebody that you met 2 minutes ago as you were signing into the escape room?
I think that's also part of the reason young people do really well in these rooms. Because we live in this text world where people aren't really communicating face to face. So strangers don't, this Facebook friends thing, got 9 million friends, none of which you've ever seen.
Yeah, that's true.
So when you get in this room, they have a higher propensity to start to collaborate than maybe people in different generations, because we are like, we don't know you, you stay over there, right? So it's an interesting dynamic. I think it makes it fun.
I do too.
If you really like to find out how other people think, go in a room with people you don't know and find out how you can quickly find some similarities and some differences, yet leverage both of them for your success. So.
Yeah, when I travel, because I do escape rooms whenever I travel, I often play with strangers, and I find I enjoy it. Some of the best times I've had have been playing with different people and getting to know them and figuring different things out with them. People you know really well. Sometimes, you can irritate each other.
Yes.
And you get frustrated with each other. So strangers add that dynamic of you don't owe them anything, you don't have any loyalty to them, and you don't have any history with them.
And if you think about it from a corporate perspective, a lot of us are doing distance work, right? So someone's in India who's helping you with a project. How do you work together without knowing who that person really is?
Very true.
So this kind of forces you into an environment where you have to figure out some basic things, like what can you do?
Yeah.
And how do you and I make sure we're not working on the same thing at the same time so we continue our progression toward the finish line? Because that's the toughest part. In an escape room, there's lots to do. And if everyone is good at one thing and they migrate just to this portion, the rest of the room is left unattended.
Yep.
And you'll never get out of there.
So bottom line, when you're picking who you're going to attend an escape room with, look for a mix of people. It's good to have a puzzle geek. It's good to have a know-it-all. It's good to have an aimless wanderer. But make sure, I think more than anything, that your competitive levels are things that you can be comfortable with, so that you don't go in with your spouse who is hyper competitive when you're totally laid back. Because let me tell you, somebody's sleeping on the couch that night if that's what you do.
Well, I'm happy to say that I'm back in the house again. I am not back in the room, but no longer in the car. Yes, I'm a slightly competitive human being.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to play with strangers. Be open to the experience because it can be a lot of fun.
Even young kids you don't know. So we've had some people come in and say, hey, I don't want to play with children. But children add another dynamic. And they are great at discovering, and they actually take things at face value. So they're also very helpful in the room.
Yeah, we're going to have to do an entire podcast on playing with kids. And we've got an upcoming one as well on why an escape room is probably not a good idea for a first date. But that being said, from the School of Hard Locks in Oceanside, again, I'm Sandy Keene.
I'm Tony Duckett. Come visit.